Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. We have a roll call, please.
Kibble,
Here.
Wolf,
Here.
Bartlett,
Yes.
Ewan,
Yes.
and Gonzalez.
Here. Okay. Is there any review for conflict on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll request an approval of the agenda.
I'll approve the agenda as presented.
Second?
Okay. Moved by Lindsay and seconded by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Approval of the minutes of 5/4/2024.
Make a motion they be accepted as presented?
I'm sorry, 5/14/2024, right. Okay.
I'll support.
Moved by John, seconded by Tracy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right. Okay, we'll open the first public comment at 6:31. This is for anything that is not on the agenda. Anybody? Okay, seeing none, we'll close at 6:31. Correspondence? Bill?
The only correspondence we have, chairs, regarding the two variances that are on the board members' desks.
Okay. Thank you.
Three variances, I apologize. One is for Brownwood and one is for Trail, one is for US 31.
Okay, thank you. Okay, reports, the Township Board, Tracy?
Yeah, we just had our meeting last night, and I'm trying to think, we did a lot of discussion on Scout Camp Traeger Road special assessment. It's a gravel road, and we were trying to figure out, I think it's been before us 5 different times over the last 20 or so years, more than that, since 99, anyway. We tabled it for more definition from the road commission and for the residents to figure out. The price has like doubled from what the estimate was, so they have some decisions to make, and so we did that. Gosh, sorry, I didn't bring my agenda, I meant to. Claire had some reappointments. Rod, I think you were on that, and then a couple planning commissioners. We also did kind of some cleanup for a TAP grant with the with TART and the road commission for the TART trail going through the Conservancy and Alta Vista and the Academy, that portion. And then, what else did we do? We did a Metro Act approval, which is kind of standard, so,
Great.
yep.
Good.
And the farm market's been going very well. Sorry, I should put a plug in for that. It's been very well. The attendance has dwindled a little bit, but as more produce comes on, we expect that to bump back up. But it's been a lot of fun, so.
Okay, great. Okay, as far as the Planning Commission, the meeting that we held on June 4, we had a number of items. One was a sketch plan review for what will be a Park Shore vacation rental proposal. That was just a discussion. We also had a public hearing and action on the Homewood Suites, which is a new hotel on 3 Mile and Munson, the corner. That's going to be a 131-room hotel. In addition to that, and that was approved, and then the Brigantine single-family residences proposal and project was also discussed and approved, and that will lay out for 171 single-family separate homes for primarily for rent. And then there was a motion for the bringing the child care ordinance up to date, and that was also approved. So it was a pretty full meeting, and hotel was approved, housing was approved, and the child care was approved. Okay.
We did pass the child care last night as well. Sorry.
Excellent, thank you. Okay. Let's see now. Planning and zoning. Bill?
I don't have any.
I can give just a couple, just a couple quick updates.
Oh, okay, then we'll
Good
have
evening, everyone.
planning and zoning.
Claire Carter. Just wanted to thank everyone for your participation with the Beach District visioning that was last month. We had really good participation. We had focus groups with business owners, with employees, with corridor residents. We had 2 public open houses, so really appreciated the public input throughout that process. We're going to continue with some pop-up meetings throughout the summer. We're going to be out on the Tart Trail, at some public parks, businesses, as well as we're planning to send out another follow-up survey just to refine some of the questions. Looking at a public presentation to share the results of this, of the kind of all of the input, the end of the summer, early fall, and then we'll be coming back to Planning Commission and Township Board with a final report for adoption. So we're excited to keep moving forward with that. And then also just wanted to share that we're hiring in Planning and Zoning Department. We're hiring a Planning and Special Projects Coordinator. So it's on our website if you know anyone who's interested. We will be moving forward with that hiring process as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Claire. Okay. All right, moving on to the business of the night, and the first is a variance request 424. That is a variance request by Tom Lepka, owner. The applicants for a parcel of land commonly known as 566 Brownwood Trail, Traverse City, in the Lakes Area District. The request requires a dimensional variance from Section 231-6C, specifically a 15-foot setback from the required 50-foot setback, resulting in a setback of 35 feet from the ordinary high water mark to build a home within the Forest Overlay District, and a dimensional variance from Section 5014, specifically a 20-foot deck setback into the required 40-foot setback, resulting in a 20-foot deck setback, everybody get that, of the high water mark. Thank you. Bill?
Thank you. As you just stated, there's 2 variants that are being requested, one for the home and one for the deck. This applicant is seeking to construct a 1,758 square foot home with an attached deck. A 50-foot setback from the ordinary high water mark is required for the home, and a 40-foot setback from the ordinary high water mark is required for the deck. The applicant's survey that's in the package is dated 4/8/24, provided by Bob Mitchell and Associates, shows there is approximately 1,400 square feet of buildable area within the boundaries, line setbacks that meet the current zoning standards for building a single-family dwelling. Has everyone seen that survey and can see, identify that area that's dotted out within there? That's approximately 1,400 square foot area that is within the setback area. The owner is requesting the current home size be increased from 1,012 square feet to 1,758 square feet. So the current zoning standards, it's important that it would allow for a 768 square feet house if the home was knocked down or legal nonconforming and changed. We could allow a 768 square foot dwelling space. I want to point out that that survey 4824 shows where there's a septic field. I was given an updated septic field site by Faith Souza this morning that shows the septic field a little bit closer to the consumer's easement in there. And also Faith Souza said that he has the right to put the septic field across the easement, okay? So he could actually ditch that and put the septic field across, across the easement on his portion of the property to the east of the easement. There's adequate space over there. This, also the septic field it's a minimal septic field design, so it's smaller than the original design that would be on your plan. That's the size of septic field they're allowing now for these type of homes, so it'd be a smaller field that they'd have to put over there on the other side. You're going to see with the conditions, based on the staff's review, there's some of the conditions that were not satisfied. Number 1 was not satisfied. Number 3 is partially dissatisfied or not satisfied. I just want to point that out. And then number 6 is not satisfied, and number 7 is not satisfied. I just recommend the board go through each condition, determine if the conditions are met or not, and as you know, all the conditions have to be met to approve the variances. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the applicant want to come forward?
My name is Dave Lucian. I'm a representative for the owner. A couple of things I want to point out is under the surveyor identified the 1,400 square foot. He's basically taking an additional 30-foot setback from the 100-foot easement, which we don't believe is accurate. It'd be up to this body to determine what the setback is. What we believe is that, and what we talked about, where I pointed out in the site visit, was that 30-foot setback from the traveled portion of the road gets you outside of that easement as well. So we believe that that 1,900 foot is not an accurate statement. As far as the basic conditions, I'll talk about the ones that it pointed out is not satisfied. Number 1, the requested variance shall not be contrary to public interest. Remember that the existing cottage, what we're asking for is basically keeping the same setback as the existing cottage for the structure, and the same setback, actually a little bit further back for the deck. So we believe that because of the lake level changes and things like that, that we believe that this does meet that. In addition, part of the ordinance talks about the amount of coverage in the first 30 feet and the second 20 feet. This proposal meets that, only adds 62 square feet of non-pervious area to it. So the pervious things meet both of the requirements of that. So we believe that this is satisfied there as well. Number 3, you kind of point out both. We obviously agree with the satisfied portion of that, so I won't kind of go into that further. Number 6, the requested variance shall meet the necessary, basically not self-created. I want to point out that we're asking to build a structure basically from a 2-bedroom to a 4-bedroom, adding approximately 800 square feet, a single-story unit, and just maintaining the same setbacks. We're not asking to change any of the waterfront. We're doing our best to eliminate any tree removal here. So we believe that, again, that this condition is met. Then secondly, there's no reasonable alternative. You talked about putting the drain field and septic back in the rear portion of the lot. That means crossing the road. There is underground utilities there as well as overhead utilities. It means building a pump system and basically tripling the cost of the drain field. And so we don't believe that's a reasonable alternative. We believe that you need to stay basically 30 feet on either side of the road for structures. Now, a septic field would be, as long as you're not in the travel portion, would be acceptable. But again, I don't believe that that's an acceptable alternative, and we think that what we've proposed really meets all the conditions of being there. So any questions for me?
Okay. Thank you.
Gonzalez, may I?
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, two things. One, as far as ordinary high water mark, we know that the lakes fluctuate. A lot of times you can see the bay has fluctuated tremendously over the years. So Eagle basically sets high water marks. So we have high water marks not only that are reflected in our ordinance, but through Eagle too. That's a set over the years topography, right? Then when you talk about the building setback, when it comes to the easement, he could bring the building up to the easement. There's no 30-foot requirement to stay away from the easement in our ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Okay. We may call you back. All right? Okay, comments of the board?
You want me to start?
Go right ahead.
So I noticed on the existing, first the proposed, the deck is actually being enlarged quite a bit. Within that ordinary high water mark area, and there's also an existing shed that is down, but I know that's not being altered, but to me, the addition of this deck and the shed poses a problem.
All right. Rod?
Well, I was looking at the proposed rebuilt deck, and it does get larger width-wise, but during our site visit, that deck actually moves back from the water mark a little bit, a few feet.
Skosh.
Goes.
Yeah.
But it just, again, it gets wider in width, which kind of, that one corner comes over, but it does come back. That was just comment on that. I mean, I think, the rear of the yard, the septic system, I mean, I'm kind of trying to see where that really would go and how it would fit. But I think the problem is more the whole house got so much bigger that it's pushing everything to the brim, so. Here's my comments.
Okay. Tracy?
Yeah, I would like to, it's up to the applicant, but there is an answer to putting the drain field across the road so that the house could come back and then we wouldn't need variances. It is a one-story house, although I think it looks like 2 stories. It just says that the second story is open to below. I think there might be a design that they could get their 4 bedrooms and 2 baths that wouldn't take up as much space on the property and wouldn't require, but again, that's their decision. So I would say it is self-created request for the variance just because of the size of house that they're wanting to put on that. Like you said, the house that is there, the cottage, is been there since the 50s. I'm sure that's, kind of that era. So it would be up to them to make a decision to come more into compliance. And I think that Wade Trim has gone through and delineated the ordinary high water mark. And Bill, did you check the difference between Wade Trims and what
It's less
the
than,
surveyor?
yeah, if you don't mind. The ordinary high water mark is 864.77, and Mitchell has it at 863.8.
Okay. So that's not the Wade Trim.
Not Wade Trim.
Okay.
no, Mitchell.
Okay. So it really, the ordinary high water mark, I don't think makes a whole lot of difference here as far as where it's at now and where Eagle has it, or where Mitchell has it,
Yeah,
so.
just to clarify, Wade Trim give us the data, and then Mitchell did the survey for the applicant, which is 863.8.
So,
Done?
I think that's it.
Okay, John?
Well, I'd like to see what they could do about it if they took the covered porch off the, I guess, the rear of the house, the front of the house, and see how far they could slide the entire building back toward the septic field. Excuse me, and then see where that gets us for variances. I mean, there's some room there to negotiate the design, I think, and get it so you don't need a variance, or awfully close where there isn't much of a variance needed. Also, one thing, when we looked around, it looks like the only tree that's going to have to be removed on the site is a tree that's on the, I guess it'd be the west side of the building for a new sidewalk. So, and that's kind of a scraggly pine, so it really doesn't affect too much of the tree inventory on the lot. But I'd like to see if we could get the whole structure moved back as far as we can and kind of squinch it in there, I guess.
Good.
That's it.
I have a question, if you could come forward, please. I take it that this is not a refurbishing, this is going to be a brand-new house, so the old house is taken down?
That's the current proposal, is to build a new structure according to code and with new energy code and all of that. Obviously, built in the 50s, it doesn't meet any energy codes or efficiency codes.
Yeah.
Okay, so once that's down, all the nonconformities kind of,
That's the reason for
Disappear.
the request for the variance, yes.
right, okay. And I have to agree that, with John, that when we were out there, the distance from the edge to the property easement was at, you said, about 13 feet. And then if you did something with that front porch, you'd probably pick up another 7 feet. So there would be like 20 feet that you might be able to reconfigure, so you could almost eliminate the need for the variance.
Except for needing to keep a specified distance, I think it's 10 feet from the drain field.
Right, but there, I think there is, in that, there is a question as to whether or not you could still do that, move the drain field and still be in compliance with the 10 feet. Again, moving the additional, or picking up the additional 20 feet.
I don't know that we could get the full 20, I don't believe that we could get the full
Yeah.
20 feet.
What I'm sensing here is that we like the idea, but we think that you need to maybe rework this a bit, so you could possibly reduce down, if not eliminate, the requirement for the variance. That's one of the sense that I'm getting from the commission here.
Can I speak to one other issue that was?
Sure, by all means, please.
Is the reason that this is a single story is that the owner, Tom, is not able to climb steps, and there's an accessibility issue. So one of the reasons we're keeping that way, and I mentioned it just briefly in the original comments, is that, You know, it's a slab and design with no steps, and basically so that he can get around. That just kind of wanted to point that out as well.
Thank you.
I'd just like to make a comment too. State law does allow for handicap accessibility within setbacks. Sometimes that's not included, so just something to consider.
Is that something that we would have to look at?
It depends if, this is a disability, right? If someone has,
If I
Yeah.
may, Gary, it is something you have to look at. I don't think it was necessarily in the application. Is tonight the first time?
No,
it's been raised?
this is new.
Okay. You know, you can offer the applicant an opportunity to basically provide better information related to any ADA needs, because frankly, if he has ADA needs, those do have to be considered by the board as part of the variance request. But unfortunately, all you have now is an oral statement, you know, as a starter. It may be worthwhile allowing the applicant to come back and provide further information related to ADA needs.
I agree.
So then we could table this so that it leaves the application open so that they could come back, like we've done that before. And that way they could give us more information and see if they can adjust anything
Yeah.
and come back, say,
I agree.
next month or something.
You know, you just, if you want to come up, you just introduced a pretty significant piece of information that we weren't really looking at, and at the same time, you hear our comments with respect to the building, and what I'm going to propose to the commission is that we do table this, and you have an opportunity to bring forth that information, both on the ADA issues and maybe some reconfiguration of the building, so it could be more in compliance with the requirements, as well as possibly eliminating the need for the variance.
Chair, sorry, should we still hold the public hearing tonight?
Yes.
So that part is done?
Yes.
Okay. I just didn't want, I was moving ahead of myself, so I just wanted to make sure everybody else was
No,
there with me.
I think we're going to be okay.
With respect to not being mentioned, I mentioned in the application, one spot I did use the word accessibility, but I didn't explicitly say handicapped or any of that. But Tom can certainly provide any additional information that you would need.
Yep, great, thank you. Okay, with that, we will open the public hearing at 6:57 for anybody who wishes to make comment.
Doug DeYoung, 3675 Village Circle Drive. I've lived in East Bay Township for 25 years. I'm born and raised in the community. I support this. I've known Tom for a number of years. He does have an accessibility issue. He does have trouble going up and down stairs. He can't get to his boat without having someone help him down those stairs to the boat. I believe this is a pragmatic solution when you look at what he needs to do and what he'd like to do on the property. If you move the drain field across the street, I counted the number of trees that would most likely have to come out, and it's probably close to 20 to 22 trees that would have to come out if you move the drain field across the street. We're looking at a project that we were looking at one tree, maybe a second tree that might have to come out, but, you know, when you're looking, and that one was a pretty scraggly tree, as Commissioner Lewin pointed out, I think that I support the project. I believe you're looking at some right places where we can go back and look at it again. But I think when you look at the overall disruption of the property, moving the drain field across the street is a no-gainer for me. As a township resident, I don't want to see a development that has to take out 20 to 22 trees unnecessarily. So I support the project. I think those of you who are on site saw the limitations of the property. But you're also looking at an individual who wants to invest in the community and continue to live on a property that his family has owned for a number of years. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing at 6:59. All right, back to the board, your pleasure.
We need a motion,
Table.
unless you are ready to go. I don't want to steal your thunder.
No, that's fine, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to table this until we receive some updated information and potentially some reconfiguration of the location of the house.
I'll support that.
Okay. Moved by Lindsay to table the motion, seconded by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. So we've tabled the request and gives you a chance to take a look at some things and also give us some more information, especially about the ADA issues. Thank you.
So when do they need to have information into Bill? Because our next meeting would be July 9th, right?
That's correct, so.
So when to give them, something to work towards, we can do July or August, but I would assume,
We'll set it all up so he knows exactly.
okay, all right, that's fine. I just didn't want to leave them hanging.
Well, I was figuring that, Bill, you'd get in contact and they can work out a timing. Okay. Thank you. Okay, the second order of business deals with two variance requests. The first is variance requests 224 and 324 by Joseph Shropshire of Lamar Advertising, the applicant for a parcel of land commonly known as 752 US 31 North, Traverse City, and located in the Regional Business District. The request requires two-dimensional variances. The first is a dimensional variance from Section 602E to allow for a billboard with a surface display area of 220.60 square feet, resulting in a 145.60 dimensional variance. The maximum allowable surface display area for a billboard sign located at 752 US 31 North is 75 square feet. The second variance of 324, the second is a dimensional variance from Section 6062C to allow for a billboard to be placed 200 feet from an existing residence, resulting in a 100-foot dimensional variance if the billboard is illuminated. The requested distance from an existing residence is, the required distance from an existing residence is 300 feet. Okay. Bill?
Chairman Gonzalez, our attorney, Peter Wendling's here to represent the township and review the staff report with the board. Thank you.
And good evening, everyone. Of course, you've obviously correctly recited the variance request here. Initially, when this variance request came in, it was believed to be only one request having to do with the sign size as far as the square footage on there, but realized as more information came in and looked at it that there was also the second issue involving the distance from any type of residential dwelling on there. It was difficult to absolutely conclude from the application whether or not this was an electronic sign that's being proposed here. I believe that has been confirmed by the engineer's report from, I just had this open here a moment ago. Go back.
Buy something.
Koski, what is it called? Yeah, Datatronics there, in a letter from May 14th of 2024, where indeed it talks about specific display features, particularly in paragraphs 5 and 6, and discusses automatic dimming technology and electronic message center and so forth. So that obviously clarifies that issue, and therefore the variance request is, on the second one, is absolutely have to do with 300-foot distance from any residential dwellings within that. Lamar currently has on a property, I believe, just to the east, an existing lawful non-conforming sign that exceeds the current square footage amount under the current regulations in the zoning ordinance. One thing that's important to note is that your regulation under 6062E allows for a billboard to have a square footage up to 300 square feet if the speed limit exceeds 45 miles an hour within that district. We looked at the district, and obviously Lamar is aware of it as well. And in the RB district, there's no portion in East Bay Township where the speed limit exceeds 45 miles an hour. It is 45 miles an hour, which really de facto means that the sign regulation is limited to 75 square foot billboards within that entire corridor. There's also only 2 signs allowed, I believe, per mile, of which I think both are owned by Lamar currently. Lamar would then take the existing lawful non-conforming sign down, and if the variance is granted and a special use permit is obtained on top of it, because that's a requirement, would erect the new sign. We do have some proposed findings here. However, I wanted to caution the board in also making a final decision tonight. Obviously, the applicant's here, I believe, with the applicant's attorney. They may have some additional information. The record's very important here. This may be a situation, depending on the outcome, where there'll be further appeals or other claims related to the veracity and the background of the zoning regulation itself. There may be questions of planning justifications when the ordinance provision was created, particularly involving the square footage, but also involving the distance requirements on there. I don't want the ZBA should not be, alarmed or concerned about it. It's just how things happen sometimes, all right? And so that's just, the possible outcome here. But I think it's important that we listen to the applicant, listen to the attorney, make sure that all your questions, or at least as many as you can gather tonight, are asked and answered while the applicant is present, as well as with his attorney. And I also suggest just doing things a little bit backwards for tonight and having the public hearing first, because you may hear, of course, you may hear public comment. You already have plenty of correspondence from the public, which may pose additional questions which board members may wish to adopt and ask the applicant, as they may be appropriate in your decision-making process as well. So I would ask that we open up the public hearing first, and then get that done, see if there's any additional information that way, and then listen to the applicant and the applicant's representative, and then go into questions and at least some initial deliberations. My advice afterward would be to invite the applicant and through his attorney to also submit proposed findings of fact and provide sufficient time to do so, as well as provide sufficient time to provide in writing answers to any questions that can't be answered immediately by any board members tonight, and any additional information that may be requested by board members tonight, so that there's adequate time to do so. The next ZBA meeting, which I think was already pointed out, is July 9th. So I would suggest that a week in advance is normally when the packet goes out, that all information be provided. I think no later, I'm thinking on the top of my head of how I think the holidays on the 4th is on a Thursday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so everything could be provided, to the township by Wednesday, July 3rd, at which time we'll consider the record on this matter closed. Everything will be received, and then the board would come back, deliberate, make its findings, and render its decision.
Okay, thank you. Okay, without objection of the commission, I will, in fact, move the public hearing forward, and we'll have the public hearing beginning at 7:08. So if anybody has any comments, please come up.
My name is Jeff Graft. We've owned and operated Pirates Cove for over 40 years. An existing billboard that's about 8 feet to the west of this proposed location has been we've had a lease agreement with these guys for decades. And we've opted not to get a cash payment, but we've traded out billboard advertising in lieu of cash. This past spring, Lamar resolved to swap the current Pirates Cove billboard for a new digital version. they tried to offer to extend our lease from 4 years to 20 years. The annual lease payments offered by Lamar to Pirates Cove for a digital billboard would have been about 4 times larger than our current trade-out. So we probably were an existing economic like value gain of like $5,000 a year. If we did this, it would be 20 years times at 20,000. So economically, it's like $400,000 deal for us. But despite this financial incentive, we rejected the offer for several reasons. All coincide with why we don't support the proposed variances. The first one is safety. The existing billboards at 3 Mile and Holiday Hills Road are at an intersection with traffic lights, not on dangerous curves. Adding a digital billboard at Pirates Cove / the Smoke and Porter property would only make an already dangerous highway curve more dangerous. Over the years, we've witnessed dozens of accidents caused by distracted drivers who fail to make the curve. While you guys were on site, we had a guy pull out and get honked at. It was scary. We had people crossing that area. It's a dangerous curve. I've been there since I was in 9th grade. I've been there for 40 years on site there. It's not a safe corner. Since cars have crashed into the Pirates Cove Pond and the golf course, they've ran into the Smoke and Porter front sign at least twice. And recently, a vehicle took out the Beta bus station at our property line. Adding a 220-foot flashing digital billboard would only present already distracted drivers with yet another distraction, potentially causing more accidents. So again, the first argument is safety. The second one, we rejected the Lamar's digital billboard offer out of respect for our neighbors. If we lived at Port Travers across the street, we wouldn't want those digital lights in our bedrooms. So we do not support the variance to allow the digital board to be 200 feet from those residences. The third is we've got a decades-long relationship with East Bay Township. We support the township and their current billboard ordinance as written. We have no wish for our name to be associated with any legal action against East Bay Township, acting like that we're partners with these guys and want the economic benefit of that. Also, if there's any consideration that we're fighting this new location so that we keep our existing one, we're not going to renew our agreement with them, which ends in December of this year. So we've got, the only reasons we don't want it are based on the community, no economic gain for Pirates Cove. And the fourth reason is we felt the digital billboard offered by Lamar would simply be an eyesore. As the township has fleshed out in its vision for the Beach District, both tourists and locals cherish our natural up north feel. Adding flashing billboards every mile certainly would not be a step forward in guarding what's left of the natural feeling in the corridor. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sally Somsel, 1717 US 31 North at Port Travers. Thank you, Mr. Graff. You took care of most of my speech, so you guys are lucky here. But I would like to state here that I live at Port Travers. We are a residential community. We are not an Airbnb. We are not a vacation property. We are not short-term rentals. We are a residential community. And in the application here for the variance, we've been called a whole bunch of different things. Maybe this, we don't think they're residential, but this is this. But I'm here to tell you we are a residential community. We have rights and ordinances as a residential community, and we want to protect our residents and the property. It is scary to turn out into US 31, and we forget going left-handed turns out of our property. You have to make right-hand turns. You protect your life. So I have been there for the last 33 years and have seen a lot of changes take place. So I believe that notwithstanding the variance request of 3.24, the proposed new billboard would violate section 6.06 2B of the zoning ordinance, which requires that no billboard shall be located within 200 feet of a residential zone and/or existing residence. If the billboard is illuminated, this required distance shall be 300 feet. Excuse me here, will I find, skipping around? Okay, we are an existing residential property, and this is a new sign. In the application here, however, by its own admission in Section 4 of Variance Request 3.24, the applicant acknowledges that there may be an existing residential use 125 feet from the proposed billboard. As a consequence, even if granted, various requests 3.3-24 would not be sufficient to permit the proposed billboard to be erected 125 feet from the existing residential use, as it only reduces the required minimum distance between an illuminated billboard and an existing residence from 300 to 200 feet. So I wish to thank you. You have a lot of work and a lot of reading, and my residents also, co-owners at Port Traverse, wish to thank you for taking the time to look at this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay, we'll close the public hearing at 7:16. Okay. Now I'll ask the applicants if you would like to come forward and discuss your application.
Joseph Shropshire on behalf of Lamar Advertising Company. Hi, Adam Barrett on behalf of Lamar Advertising Company. My address is 1901 St. Antoine, 6th floor at Ford Field, Detroit, Michigan. I'm an attorney for Lamar, the law firm of Bodden PLC. I think you've seen before you the application here. Let me stress a couple of things. Number one, there is an existing billboard located at the premises, and it is illuminated. And it is now larger than the proposed billboard and taller than the proposed billboard. You heard the gentleman from Pirates Cove say a billboard there would be dangerous, but so long as it advertises for its business, it's not dangerous. Clearly, you've seen that site, that location there before. It's advertising the use that's on premise there, this sign. The billboard itself will use certain types of diodes. I think I met with some of you out there to talk about that. There will be no light bleed to the surrounding residents. Understand that the proposal before you today is not a variance on whether or not a digital billboard is allowed. You allow a digital billboard. In fact, Sugar Beach and is it Bay Beach or Big Beach? On both sides. On both sides have digital billboards right now that flicker. They change messages. Billboards are controlled not only by federal law and local law, but by state law. And in Michigan, the Highway Advertising Act does not allow a billboard to flicker. That's what I've heard the gentleman say tonight. Those messages remain static, and then they change. The billboard here is not going to be like I saw at the Dairy Queen. That's flashing for motorists to come in and to buy. The messages will remain static, and under state law, that is defined to be a change every 8 seconds. The billboard will be something that the community business partners have asked for. Understand that billboard advertising in this corridor is something that's directed to local business. Your local businesses depend upon the tourism businesses I saw today along this stretch of the road, and they're all trying to get the attention of local tourists. Billboards are safe. We have 8 traffic studies we can submit to you tonight from places like Virginia Tech that provide that there is no danger to billboards. In fact, what each one of us has in our pocket or our purse or our bag tonight is what causes more traffic injuries than anything else. We are obviously concerned about the distinction between size over 1 mile per hour, but that's not an issue for this board to decide, as Mr. Wendling has identified. We are concerned that there's about how the proximity to digital signs is defined, or illumination is defined, when every sign that I saw out today is somehow illuminated, but yet this requirement applies to new signs. We believe that the standard here is practical difficulties. It's not self-imposed undue hardship. It is whether or not we meet the intent of the ordinance, and we do. Billboards are lawful uses under state law, and in fact, they're also a permitted use under your zoning ordinance. Billboards are not going to spread. You've identified where where billboards can be located. We're not asking to change that. What we're looking for here to do is to reduce the size of the sign to a size that you permit if this road went 1 mile an hour faster, reduce the height of the sign, and to permit us to put this into a new build and allow the use to continue. I can answer any questions you might have of the application. I would direct you to the light study, especially in your packet. The light study shows that there will be no light bleed on the residents that are being identified. The lights will be aimed at motorists traveling on US 31. The billboard, in fact, will be shaped to prevent that type of light bleed, and those diodes pointing down. There's a difference between being able to see my Christmas lights from a distance and being able to read by them or be blinded by them. People will basically see a dark black image of that billboard from angles from the residences that are being identified. In fact, motorists or people traveling this area that are not coming on the, I believe you said north or southbound traffic, won't be able to see the billboard or its messaging.
I'd just like to quickly address the safety aspect. One of the things we heard you guys talking about before the meeting started out there was safety and people crossing across US 31. And that is a shame, but what those people are doing by crossing across 31 at a place that's not a crosswalk is already illegal. They shouldn't be doing that to begin with. The sign there or the sign not being there is not going to affect people doing that. If that sign exists, people are going to do it. If that sign doesn't exist, people are going to do it. I have studies here, multiple studies that have been accepted by the Federal Highway Administration that says that billboards that exist, people glance at a billboard approximately, in all of these studies, 1.28 seconds. A digital billboard, the only difference between a digital and a static billboard is 1.32 seconds. That's 0.4 seconds longer. I would say that when you look at this area hasn't been a beautiful touristy area on US 31 in 25 years. You guys just allowed a hotel with 171 rooms to be built. You also allowed another hotel right down the street that's got another 200 rooms. That's 371 additional cars traveling on US 31. If safety was the concern, why did we allow 2 hotels to be built that are going to add that many more tourists and cars on US 31? Because improved property is a higher taxable value for the township. And it brings people in that are going to spend money in the township. So we can't say that safety is an issue, because if safety was an issue, those projects wouldn't be approved that would have added all those cars to US 31. We have time for questions if you have any additional questions. We don't feel this should be tabled. I don't think that there's anything that we can add that we haven't already added. We never had that this was an LED billboard, because we weren't required to apply for a variance or include that in this request. They're already allowed.
The documents that you have, would you submit those to Bill, please?
Yep, I got a couple more.
Okay.
And with the issue about what is approved and not approved hotel-wise, we don't accept suppositions. To the board.
I'm sorry, is that a finding, sir?
Excuse me?
You don't accept suppositions? I'm not sure what you're saying.
The statement that was made, his statement.
Just about the whole.
Is-
That adding 400 rooms didn't
Yeah.
increase traffic?
Back to the board.
I've got a couple of questions.
Sure.
Going through this application, I see existing residential use in parentheses, and I see it used in that different type of terminology in several different parts in their application. I just want to clarify that it does not have to do with how it's zoned, it does with the use of the property, correct? The 300-foot spacing requirement does with the use, not what it is zoned.
Yes, it's a dimensional issue.
Okay, I wanted to clarify that first. Second, is there any evidence that these properties at Port Grand Traverse are not being used for residential use? Are there any advertisements on short-term rental sites? Do these people have PREs that live at any of these dwellings? I mean, is there any evidence that they're being used for rentals and not being used for dwellings? That's what I would like to see.
I could defer to Bill on that. The only thing I remember is that obviously Port Traverse was involved extensively in the issue involving jet ski rentals on
I
the
remember
neighboring
that.
property. And at that time, although it's not part of this record here, you know, they represent themselves as being residents largely, as opposed to short-term rentals or condo hotel owners or things of that nature, which is more, you know, it is common here that many of these hotels are condominium type of ownership where you have individual owners of units, but it still operates as a hotel. That's not my understanding, just again, from past experience with Port Traverse, that's not as represented. Whether some of those units are rented or not, I defer to Bill under the township's ordinance related to
Just so I don't have any idea if some of those units are rented or not, but I know they're being used as residents, so.
I think we had some communication in one of the correspondence that stated there was one long-term rental in that complex. All the rest were owner-occupied homes, so. And I didn't verify that, I'm just going by what
Yeah,
was said in
that's what
there.
I mean, like, statements are statements, but verification to me is
Yeah,
verification.
yeah, and we could easily do that.
Well, when it comes to the zoning, saying the zoning, how it's zoned is not relevant. They can rent jet skis, that's a commercial business. If they can rent a unit, they're making money, that's commercial. If that property is zoned RV, which is commercial. So according to the
Future
township's
owners.
ordinance, I could run a business out of my garage because it's zoned properly. The only thing stopping somebody from doing it is that they're a condo association and their bylaws dictate that they're not supposed to. But that is not a township issue. If somebody was allowed for their bylaws and they came in here and applied for an application to run a business in RV that was allowed, the township would have no choice but to issue that permit. So zoning is valid. The township didn't want it to be commercial. It should have been spot zoned and not zoned as resident or regional business.
Rod?
I don't have anything on that comment at all. I go back to the existing zoning, says from that residential, required distance from an existing residence, and I kind of agree. I would like to know, I did catch that note that there is one long-term rental in that whole building, but there's quite a few units, and maybe, I don't know if Sally could provide us with more information on that or not, but from the Port Traverse.
But we agree that there is one rental, which is.
One long-term rental? That's different than short-term rental.
It's a business then. They're filing taxes on that revenue. It's a business.
John?
Just mulling this over.
Okay.
My biggest concern is the lights. I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying about the LEDs.
You are proposing that you're going to be moving the sign, and I think you said that you'd be moving it 8 feet, is that correct?
Approximately, yes.
And is it 8 feet that goes on an angle? I think it's a little closer to the road?
No, it'll meet the required setbacks from the road.
Okay.
And we will determine exactly where that pole is. Once we gain the variances, because we don't need a variance on the setback, we will have a survey done, which will be $3,000 or $4,000. There's no point in us doing a survey now and we can't get the variances, because at that point, if we can't get the variances, we have to determine if litigation is the next step. And we don't want to do that until we have.
But you're saying that would be sort of like parallel to where the
It'll
current,
just like it does now, when we went out there and did that site visit that you guys, we had a meeting on.
Right.
It'll look just like that.
okay. But the design of the sign, isn't that, it's kind of on a curve, is it not? So
It's
it's
just-
the V?
Instead of being the back-to-back, it'll be slightly like this.
Right.
Which will allow us to direct the light towards the road.
Which is anchored, the pillar is anchored here. So that actually is going to bring the sign further out, because the current sign is, I think it's, 20 feet? And this one, when I looked at the drawings, was 8 feet, 16 feet, and 2.5 feet, I think, on either side. So it brings it a little further towards the road, correct?
No, it'll be the right setback, or maybe I'm just not quite understanding, but the way the pole is on this one, the pole is what we call a center mount. The pole goes.
The pole is center mount currently,
On the new one, it'll be a flag where the pole's at one end.
Right.
And flags over.
and
So it'll-
flags out. So it does come further out.
Away from the road.
It goes the other way.
It'll flag towards the building, so it will meet the correct setback.
Oh, I see. So in other words, instead of going out this way, you're coming back towards the building.
Correct. But the distance, I mean, if you're talking 5, 6 feet of being farther away, it doesn't change.
No, just trying to clarify what I saw in the drawings.
Correct.
Mr. Chair, I had a question.
Sure.
Bill, can you verify for me the number of billboards, electronic billboards that we allow within that mile distance?
There's one per mile, and Lamar has 2 of those signs. And there's actually another one down by Burger King that is in the township. We verified that, so.
Yeah, that one's on, that's the only part of that parcel that's in the township. The rest of it's in Acme, and that one was built on hardship because that parcel was no good for anything else.
Did I answer the
Um,
correctly?
So we have one at 3 Mile, we have one at 5, so this would be the one essentially at 4 Mile, or a mile apart.
One,
Okay.
that's correct.
But we can only have 2?
No, you can
One
have,
per mile.
I'm asking the zoning
Per
administrator?
mile, so. the one
One
down-
per mile, okay,
Yep, so.
okay, thank you.
again, spacing is another issue. We're not here for any variance on spacing.
In your
Verify, thank you.
In your discussion that you wrote up, you had indicated that there's a difference in cognitive ability of the driver at speed based upon the size of the sign. Is that issue addressed in the studies that you just presented?
Yes, and there's a summary in there. Basically, they did this study over multiple years with multiple jurisdictions, and they looked at the size of the sign, bigger, smaller bulletins, posters, and over 600,000 accidents occurred in these areas, and they did not attribute any rise in accidents, or the severity of accidents related to billboards.
And there's a reason to why your Dairy Queen type sign will use motion, because they need to get your attention, because they can't, harder to read, as opposed to that's, again, this is the size that the township has decided is appropriate for 46 miles an hour. It's something you can read at a higher speed.
And the Dairy Queen sign, among other digital signs that are on US 31, all violate the ordinance because they're running motion on those signs, and motion is not allowed for the township sign ordinance. The township is not enforcing that portion of the ordinance on those signs. We're not going to run motion. They will be static images that will change instantaneously.
And that's not our word, that's state law. The sign would come down.
It already has MDOT permits issued for this digital sign.
One thing I was curious about, and I don't know if this was a mistake or not, but when you had your application for the variance, in one application, it says, are you the owner of the property? And one time you had yes and no, and on another one you had no. So do you own that property?
No, so we don't own the property, we're a lessor, and so we're trying to identify that we have an ownership interest, which is of a lease.
Oh, okay, so the Smoke and Porter property is, you're a lessor on that?
Yes.
Okay.
And we do have, through an email to Bill, that we have authority to represent the owner on behalf.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying is that when I was looking at the application, it had yes, no, and then it had no, so,
I was like, I didn't know which one to check, so.
okay. Yeah, and I knew about the other piece, but I was just wondering. I didn't know that particular person was the owner of the property. I thought he had something to do with Lamar, so, okay. John, now, do you have any questions, or?
I'm still mulling this over.
Okay.
I guess if the sign changes every 8 seconds, how far is it visibly away? Can you read it? Mile, half mile, what's the?
Within about 500 feet, and that's the problem with a 75 square foot sign. Look, I could build this sign at 75 square feet, and if these variances are denied, I'd like to will. But that is going to be a bigger distraction for drivers that drive by and can't read the sign. They're gonna be slowing down to read it. So if it's truly about safety, that's why this size makes sense, because people will actually be able to read what it says.
Let me, sort of, to that point, think about your highway sign, your normal bulletin as you're driving on the freeway, it's just an illuminated sign. You can see that sign for quite a distance. That's going to change with the diodes because they're going to be pointed down. So you might see a light, you might see something, it's going to look like, it's going to look fairly dark, but you're not going to be able to see what it is until you are within the proximity of the sign. You have a much better chance of seeing the Dairy Queen sign a mile away than you do.
I guess my question was that how, somebody driving down the road at 45 miles an hour, and your sign's changing every 8 seconds, you must have some kind of a formula or something that says, okay, we want that person to be able to observe 2 changes, 3 changes, 4 changes.
So on the highways, the freeways, that might come into play. On this type of a road, there'll be only one message display.
Yeah, one driver will only see one message.
Yeah.
When it comes to the MDOT regulations, so there's a vegetation bill out there that we can cut trees out on the right of way if we need to see our sign. MDOT study says that we can get 7 seconds of view on a sign, and that equates to about 435 feet at 55 miles an hour. At 70 miles an hour, it's 503 feet that we would see. So people are only gonna see one section of the sign. Now, if it's like it was when we were out there today, when traffic is slow, you might see 2. Those things all benefit the businesses in that community that are going to.
I mean, I think you saw us out there at rush hour, and so it was pretty congested.
This thing's on a curve as well, it's not just how fast you're going, it's on a curve, that's what makes that
He can't.
section of highway dangerous.
Who is, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know who was talking there for a second. Well,
Those are opinions.
Whoa. No debate right now, and please, if you,
We understand.
okay. All right.
Do you have one of these signs up and running somewhere?
Yeah, there's one at 3 Mile. And
Has that got the same angle as of the diodes on, or is this a?
No, that sign is about 7 to 10 years old. At the point that that sign needs to be replaced, we would replace it with this type of sign to where we would replace all the diodes in it, just like light bulbs, to where you wouldn't see them from the sign. So basically, when you drive by this sign, when you get to the side view of it, it'll just look like black.
How-
You won't be able to see it.
I agree with you, John. Is there one local that has this new design?
We can just go, on our own time, go take a look at it. I mean,
No, because this sign's gonna cost me probably about $75,000 more to build. We don't build them unless we have to, unless it fits into an area where there's a concern about light bleed. There's no light bleed anywhere else, none of the ones we have. We have a similar technology in Traverse City on CAS. It's not this light, like bleed technology, but it's a back-to-back poster, V side, but it's not gonna equate to the same, what you're trying to look at.
Yeah, the Daktronics letter actually referred to the one on Cass.
No, that's our address. We're at 2456 Cass. That address to that sign is down the street from our property. That's on north, that sign is located north of Airport Road, we're south of Airport Road.
Well, it said, yeah, but I'm just saying, yes, and proposed for installation at the location at 2456 North Visions Drive off Cass.
That's just referring to our address.
Yeah. How, do you know, how large is that sign on 3 Mile?
The sign at 3 Mile is 292 square feet.
Okay.
Which was permitted when that sign was built. And it would be permitted today because it's under 300 square feet.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'd like to be able to take a look at those safety studies, those traffic studies. I'm still not convinced that isn't an issue on that curve. There's been a lot of accidents on that curve.
I'd like clarification on the residential use, because to me, if there's a 300-foot requirement from a residential use and there is indeed residential use, we need to know that.
Okay. Personally, I'm kind of curious about the documents that were just supplied, but any other thoughts?
Well, I guess I'd say if Port Traverse is RB, right? Or whatever, what's it zoned?
Regional business.
It's part of the
Regional
same business, yeah, same zoning district.
So really, we can't just arbitrarily say it's residential. It's zoned RB, or is it?
Well, it has, the zoning is RV, but the ordinance talks about whether it's zoned residential or whether it's existing residences, and that's part of it there. So it does, impact existing residences, even though it's the RB district. The other thing, Mr. Chairman, I was just going to mention, I think I saw a look of alarm on some of the staff's face when I suggested July 3rd, so I think we can probably get everything in by maybe the Friday, which would be the 28th of June, and that allows staff more time to put together the packet for the following meeting. I do encourage, and it is a lot of good information that was presented tonight, by the applicant, that the applicant also draft findings based upon the standards contained in the ordinance, or at least be provided an opportunity to do so. With that said, we will include today's meeting minutes and make sure that we have an accurate exhibits list. And we'll make sure that the minutes are we're not going to wait 8 days for the 8-day minutes. We're going to have them a little bit earlier so that everybody has material and that the applicant and his attorney has access to all that
I may be
material.
able to find on YouTube or thereabouts an example
Okay.
of that
That type of sign?
type of sign, so I'd
That'd be
ask
great,
if
yeah.
you allow us to expand the record.
Absolutely, yes.
Sure.
And so
Yeah,
that way the
Well,
record is
yeah, if you could
open
find
for
something we could, actually, physically see, maybe somebody.
I'm curious about the whole idea about how it blocks out the light, based upon your diodes that you talked about.
Let's see if we can find that and expand the record on that.
This isn't the end of this either. If we have to get the variances, and we do get these variances, we still have to go for a special use permit.
Yes, that's.
Yeah, we know that. The question, Bill, is that timing good for you?
We need to make this work, and we'll.
Well, I mean, was it June 28? Was
Friday, it's 2 weeks from Friday. It's 2 weeks from this Friday, so. Although it's a Friday, technically the township offices are not open on a Friday, so
Right.
we could make it Thursday, the 27th. That's still over 2 weeks. I think, is that plenty of time for you to provide
Yeah,
whatever
I
you
mean,
need?
it sounds like that it's also going to determine whether or not there are actually residences within the 300-mile.
That's going to be all looked at, yeah. So.
And then that'll give us time to pour through 7 studies.
Yeah, well, I do
I'd
know
like to
that,
get those
I do know
sooner than
from
Oh,
past,
absolutely. I mentally am checking out the week of.
yeah,
before.
Port Trafford has been there since, what, 1980, I think is the,
Was developed in the February.
okay, I think,
There is a summary page there.
so.
That Federal Highway Administration summarized all the studies of what they found, so
Okay.
Might help you.
you're not going to have to read all those studies, because quite frankly, if you have to read that study, I'm not sure that anyone can understand. The summary.
Well, let's not say that.
The summary is much easier to understand.
All right.
It's a while.
Okay, that being the case, can we have a motion for a table?
I will make another motion to table this request until additional materials can be provided and we have time to review those materials.
And Nick, could you add before there's a second that those materials would all be in by the close of business on Thursday, June 27th, if that's acceptable?
And sent, brought here, emailed to you?
Email directly to the township. They'll distribute.
That would be Mr. Vandercook.
Yes, Mr.
Yes.
Rankin, and he'll
With
provide.
the addition of what Mr. Wendling just said.
I will support that motion.
Okay. So it's moved by Lindsay, supported by Rob, to table the application until such time as materials are received on Thursday, June 27th. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, only one thing. This is just normal, but in the future, if you want to have postponed deliberations, you don't have to do a motion with the tabling, because under Robert's rules, of course, you have to take it off the table by a motion. It can be continued as old business for the next
Oh.
meeting. So you can
Oh.
try that in the future.
Sorry.
That's fine.
That's why not every township has adopted Robert's rules.
Yeah, well, I mean, most of them do, but obviously with Robert's rules, you have to also perform your statutory duty, because Robert's rule says that the chair is not allowed to vote, and obviously that'd be a violation of the chair's statutory duty.
Yeah, that's not fair.
Good job, Chair.
Yeah. I got to dust off my Robert's rules, that's for sure. Okay. All that being said, we'll have the second public hearing at 7:45.
Public comment.
Public comment, 7:45. Thank you. I always screw up something. Okay. You're good. Seeing none, we'll close it at 7:45. Our next meeting is Tuesday, July 9th, and unless there's anything else from the board, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for joining us today.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Good seeing you.